Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Podcast. We have Miss Velvet Escobar talking about executive functions, an area in which she's an expert.
Thank you for the invitation, Yatsidi. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to share this space with you.
Thank you for being here. To start off, could you explain to us what executive functions are?
Well, to start, the executive functions are mental processes that we use to accomplish a task. This includes some complex names that will seem complex to us, but as we discuss further, we will realize that there are things that we do in our day-to-day life. For example, with planning, we have to organize ideas in our mind, retain the information, to then perform a task.
Interesting. What skills are involved in these functions?
First, cognitive flexibility. The ability to think about a situation in different ways. Working memory is heavily involved, which is the ability to retain information, and inhibitory control, which is basically being able to eliminate all the distractions around us in order to complete a task.
And can you give us an example of how these functions develop, like in children?
Yes, children basically develop through play. That is the best tool that a child has. They can explore, experience, and realize many things that they can do. So we can take advantage of this excellent tool to teach executive functions. For example, if our child has trouble brushing their teeth, there is a task, an implicit function there, so we can do it through play, like teaching them a song so that they can learn how to brush their teeth, and then it's a little bit more creative. There are some guidelines, Yatsidi, that we could look at because not all games are appropriate for all children. For example, we have a parameter of children between 0 to 2 years old. There, the child uses more exploratory play that is based on observation. So there, it is important that the child has elements in their environment that attract their attention, that they can see, explore, and arouse a certain curiosity in them. From 2 to 5 years old, the child uses another stage of play, which would be symbolic play. That is where the child then begins to imitate animal sounds. They want to dress up as a character or want to imitate. Then we implement role play, mime, and look for creative ways for the child to entertain themselves using their own imagination. Later on, from 7 to 8 years old, the child is thinking more games with rules. Then we can implement memory games, chess, puzzles, etc. And from 8 to 12 years old, children like more competitive games. Then there come to the physical activities and even video games. It is also important that when we're going to select a game, we notice for what age it is appropriate to use, because that can generate frustration in a child. Let's suppose that we give a 70-piece puzzle to a 3-year-old child. We're going to cause frustration because they don't have the ability to do it. On the other hand, if we give them a game, for example, a puppet, it will then stimulate their creativity and they will feel more comfortable using that type of toy or tool.
Yes, I think my parents use more the memory ones with us. We have a lot of puzzles, and I think that's the one that has helped us a lot. Well, when we talked a bit about memory planning and all that, how does it help to stimulate these skills from a young age?
Well, because these functions are going to serve you in adolescence and adulthood. In general, childhood is a good opportunity to acquire this so that problems don't develop later on. Here, in the childhood stage, is where we create routines. We teach the child to be organized, to keep a schedule, to plan their day, and then little by little, they learn how to perform tasks, and that this doesn't become a problem for us later on due to a lack of organization or because we don't know how to perform a task.
Yeah, I think that a routine that my mom set for us since we were little girls, for example, finish our homework or work, and then we can do fun things. Even right now, I'm already in college, and I still have to finish my homework so I can do something that I want to do, like watch a movie or something, right? That's why I think routines help us a lot. And how can we strengthen our tolerance to frustration and encourage self-regulation?
A mistake we sometimes make is that when we cannot manage the misbehaviors of children or adolescents, we try to avoid them, and that is something we should not do. We should take advantage of that opportunity to teach the child some processes or some executive skills like, for example, inhibitory control, which is to eliminate everything that is around them and then can help them to concentrate on performing an activity. There is a technique that is known as scaffolding, which is to teach a child step by step. Let's say it's a problem for them to brush their teeth. So you take the toothbrush, you show them how to put the toothpaste on until they learn the skill. You don't move onto another one. That scaffolding then allows you to add knowledge little by little, and this helps the child not to get frustrated in the activity. There are also a few other tips that we can use. If a child throws tantrums, we should talk to them with a tone and a pitch of voice that stimulates calmness in them. If we do it by yelling at them, we will only stimulate more inappropriate behavior. Also, we should not be overprotective with children. Allow them to explore and experiment because learning is trial and error. So the child will have to gain their own experience by making mistakes also. Sometimes a child can get frustrated because they do not have a guideline or a parameter to follow. So we should give them that guideline and instruction on how to do things so that they can learn, either by observation or by experimenting on their own. It is also important that we teach the child to manage their emotions, to go from, I don't know, how I feel, to tell them, tell me, how do you feel? Are you happy? Are you sad? Frustrated? To name their emotions, because that way it is easier to talk about them and teach them about how to manage them.
Yeah, I think I've seen the difference when there are children who are very eloquent when expressing their emotions and others are not. And I think that's why you were explaining that, right?
Yes, you should validate their feelings, not tell them you don't have to be sad. It's not okay for you to be sad, but try to identify the reason why you are sad, or if you're frustrated, what didn't turn out from where you were trying. How about breaking down what you're doing into small tasks until you complete it, and then teach them new guidelines so they can tolerate their emotions better.
Yeah, I like that. And how can we more aware of these functions that we do day to day?
Well, there has been a lot of talk about creating routines, and I think it's an excellent idea. In a routine, things aren't so complicated, and the child doesn't wonder between should I or shouldn't I do something, because they already have a structure, which is something important, and they have an order or a chronology of what they have to do. It's important that this routine is not something flexible either, right? Something that the child feels heavy, but at least they're provided a structure, and it's interesting, because if we put up some visual aids, it encourages the child to follow instructions more. So I think it's an excellent tool for the child to follow that order. It is also important when establishing routine that they are not too complicated, but that the child can understand them and that we can discuss them with the child beforehand and that they know what they are expected to do.
What kind of routines? Do you have any ideas we could?
Like what time to get up, what time they have to shower, what time to have a period of time to do their chores, when they have time for recreation, and they know in what order they have to do them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, from what we heard, routines really impact in our lives. What recommendations can you give us to create these routines?
Break it down into small objectives that are clear and consistent, that have an order to them, that help the child also understand why they have to do it. I think that's an important part. That's a question that sometimes we get asked, but why do I have to take a bath? Why do I have to do homework if what I want to do is watch TV? Then teach the importance of some of the activities that they have to do.
And there are people who think that they live with a diagnosis like attention deficit, and that's why they cannot develop these skills. Like, what would you recommend regarding this?
If you don't have a diagnosis, ideally go to a specialist and get the diagnosis. Confirm whether your suspicion is real or not. If you don't have it, then it's important not to label yourself.
Okay.
Not thinking that I have it, not because I have a certain difficulty, for example, with memory or paying attention, doesn't mean I already have the disorder. There are many other clinical conditions that could affect your memory and concentration. One of them is anxiety and stress. So it doesn't necessarily imply that you have attention deficit, but if you suspect it or see other difficulties associated, it is better to consult with a specialist, and they will teach you how to create routines to fit your needs.
Yes, because I think that as those terms are becoming like more common, if you see like a similarity in something, you think you already
That I
have
already
it.
have it, I might say, yeah, I already have attention deficit. And maybe you don't. Maybe you get more distracted. You have a difficulty in inhibitory control because you want to do a task, but you quickly get distracted by something. Like when you tell a child, go get your backpack ready, and they go to their room and they find a video game. Then they no longer get the backpack, but go and play because they found something more interesting. That does not imply that they have a proper attention deficit problem.
And in that case, if they didn't have it, what would you recommend to help them improve those skills?
Create those routines.
Okay.
Make a self instructional guide would also be helpful.
Okay. Yeah. And I imagine we start like small and then little by little.
Yes, as I was saying, break it down into small goals that are clear and have a sequence. First, you do something, second, third, until you complete a task.
Okay. And any recommendations for parents for like how to take care of self-esteem when you're developing these functions?
Well, self esteem is a fairly complex web that includes perceptions, feelings, and thoughts in relation to oneself. The difficulty, Jatsiri, mainly is that when a child makes a mistake, maybe we say things that can hurt them, and that ultimately becomes a self concept like you're clumsy or you're useless. That's creating an idea in their mind that that's what I am. And when I want to do an activity, it reduces my self confidence. So it makes me act shy or have withdrawn behaviors. I won't want to do anything because I'm afraid to fit that concept that I heard. So it's important to help the child to create a healthy self concept. We all know that self esteem is divided into several pillars. One of them is knowledge, helping the child to know themselves. What are their abilities? What are their strengths? And use them to do an activity. That really is an executive function, to use those skills that I have to perform an activity. Being responsible, being attentive can be qualities that we foster in a child to motivate them to try to do something that maybe they're afraid to do, and then create that appropriate environment for them to explore and experience for themselves who they are and what they can do and what they can't do in different environments.
I think that nowadays self esteem is something that is being addressed a lot and is being talked about more openly. And I think maybe when they're little kids is when they hear that the most. I think I heard that right, that when they tell us things when we're little, that's when it sticks, so to speak.
Yes, however, in adulthood, we can analyze that concept that we have internalized about ourselves because self esteem is something dynamic. That is, it's not something that remains static in life, but it's something that changes as we grow up. So, if you were told as a child that you were useless or that you couldn't do something, at this age, you can have the ability to analyze that evidence of what I have heard. What is in my history that tells me that I'm not? And then you can debate that belief and start to foster the healthy concept about yourself. And what you say is important. Self esteem is needed to perform any activity and trusting that you can. Now, in young people, comparison is very common. Some want to be like others, and they get frustrated when they don't recognize their abilities. And they value other people's abilities more. So that makes them create an unhealthy self concept.
I remember that when I was about 7 years old, I skipped ahead and I heard from other people that told me that I wouldn't be able to pass the school year because I was too young for the grade I should be in. But my parents taught me that I could. If I believed, I could do it. And I ended up succeeding because of all the effort I put in, I ended up in the top spots. And that stayed with me. I was young, I grew up with that to know that I can do things like that.
Yes, because in your memory there is a yes, I can, I did it. So why would it be different this time? So you empower yourself and encourage yourself to do something different. So it's about encouraging the child, creating a concept of who they are, always encouraging their abilities.
And thank you so much for talking to us. Do you have anything else you would like to add?
Well, I know at first it often seems like it's a complex term, but today we're talking about how it's something that can be implemented from small tasks. It's something that we do all the time. We have all cooked, we have all done household chores, even done professional reports or studying. These are small actions that we can do, not to get so complicated with the term, but simply to understand that these are processes that we carry out to complete a task.
Thank you so much for taking the time to help us here. At the beginning, I was also a little bit confused about what executive functions were, but as you said, seeing that we use it every day and that we can really help children so that they can develop better, we're going to apply what we learned today. And thank you so much for joining us here.
It was my pleasure.
And thank you for listening, and we hope you can listen to the next podcast.